You're ready to knit your first cardigan, but you want something easy and not too complicated. But how do you narrow down all of those knitting patterns to find the right cardigan pattern for you? Well, I went right to other knitters and asked them about their favorite beginner-friendly cardigan patterns, and they shared some great answers with me. So stick around and let's see what other knitters recommend when it comes to knitting your first cardigan. Hey nerdy knitter, Tanya here. I'm a certified knitting instructor and a master hand knitter, and the goal here at Nerdy Knitting is to help you become a more confident, adventurous knitter. And we've addressed lots of beginner-friendly patterns in the past, different categories for sweaters, lots of first projects, bulky knits, things like that. But one topic we hadn't addressed before is cardigans, and sometimes you don't want a pullover sweater, you want a cardigan. So that's what we're going to look at today. But instead of rounding up a list of patterns myself, I went right to the source, other knitters, and asked them about their favorite beginner-friendly cardigan patterns. So that's what we're going to look at today. I asked here on the YouTube community page, and I also asked over on Instagram, and I got a reply over there as well. So I've collected all of those responses along with the pattern that I knit for my first cardigan, and we're going to take a look at all of those and what I think, if they are beginner friendly, or some of them I think are a little stretch for beginners, depends on where you are in that beginning knitting journey, I suppose. We're going to look at all of those patterns, so let's get right to it. Now, one tip before we look at those patterns, if you're feeling a bit nervous about knitting a cardigan, especially a full-size adult cardigan, start with a baby or toddler size, even if you don't have a baby or toddler, because you can rip out that yarn later and use it for something else. But just knitting a small sample size is a good way to get an idea of how things work, how things are constructed, how to knit a button band, all of those little details that might be making you nervous. Just knit a small one. So the first two patterns we're going to look at are actually baby and toddler size cardigans. So our first of the baby or toddler size recommendations is the Bug Warmer by Tyga Hilliard. This free pattern. So this is a great way to start if you just want to knit a little sample to get an idea of how a sweater or cardigan is constructed. This will help you figure that out. Now this is specifically a raglan construction. You can see those diagonal seam lines on the shoulders to the underarms. That's where those increases are worked. So this is worked top down. You're starting with that neckband worked in garter stitch. Then you're switching to stockinette stitch and working those increases on those diagonals. And even the front band is all integrated right with the sweater. So you're not going to be picking up stitches later on. It's worked in garter stitch as you're knitting the rest of the body of the sweater in stockinette. Finished with a bit of garter at the hem and the sleeve edges. So very simple, seamless, top-down construction. Now the sizes range from 7 sizes, from baby up to a 4 to 6 year old size. So there's lots of sizes here. Good way to start learning how to knit a cardigan. The yarn weight is an Aran weight yarn, so it'll knit up pretty quickly. And of course, it's a free pattern, which is always a nice thing. So our next recommendation for baby toddler sweater is the Baby Sophisticate by Linden Down. Now this pattern is also free with just 2 sizes, but she has created another pattern with extended sizes. That one's not a free pattern, it's a paid for pattern. So if you really like this pattern, then it might be worth it to get the paid option for that wider range of sizes. This one's also done with an Aran weight yarn, and the construction is exactly the same. You're knitting top down, so you're starting up here and you're working the body of the cardigan itself, the 2 front sides, the sleeves and the back, and we have those raglan shaping lines right here where we'll be increasing, and there's a bit of garter stitch at the cuffs and along the hem. The big difference is this front band right here. This is worked sideways. You can see the garter stitch is running in this direction, so that means the button band is picked up after the fact, and then you're working this in garter stitch. And we have a bit of a shawl collar here, so I'm guessing, I haven't actually looked at the pattern, but I'm guessing that it's probably done with short rows, which is little step up for beginners. So if you're feeling adventurous, definitely give this a try. And if that's something you're feeling nervous about, that like picking up stitches and working a button band and things like that, then a little baby cardigan is a good way to practice that skill. Let's move on to our adult size cardigans. So the first recommendation is for the Willingdon by Elizabeth McCarten. So if we look at our details here, we've got 5 different sizes from a 36 inch to a 50 inch bust. This one's worked from the bottom up and it has that shawl collar. It's got some short rows in here. It does say it has a link for a tutorial included. That looks like it's for the no graft method for the underarm closure. So this one has an all over texture on the body. It starts right down here because you're knitting from the bottom up. So there's your cast on edge and you're working up, and then the sleeves as well, and I guess joining everything here. Looks like raglan shaping right there. So we don't have any like rib along the cuff. We have this really pretty textured pattern instead that's extended all the way down. And then we have our front band, which looks like it's done in a knit 2 purl 2 rib. Yep. And this shawl collar. So this is why I would probably bump this up to sort of an adventurous beginner. It's really a judgment call on where you are in your knitting journey, how many projects you've done, how confident you feel about something like this, where you've got to pick up stitches, which is not a difficult thing to do. You're just working in rib here. The only thing would be this shawl collar that's done with German short rows. So those aren't hard either. It's just another skill that you have to develop, and you only do that by actually trying something and doing it. So it's still, I would still categorize it sort of as that adventurous beginner because of this right here, because of the German short rows and this short row collar. But definitely not something a beginner should never do. It uses bulky weight yarn, and it costs $11.50 Canadian. Our next recommendation was Harvest by Tin Can Knits. Now this is part of their Simple collection, which is focused on helping new knitters tackle beginner-friendly projects. And it's free. You can download it right here from the website. And it comes in a wide range of sizes, child sizes and adult sizes. So this is also a great one if you just want to make a small size just to practice all of those cardigan knitting skills. So this one is worked from the top down, again with that raglan construction. You can see those lines right here. When they run diagonally like that, sort of like a baseball style t-shirt where you have a solid color for the body and then a separate different color for the sleeves, and you've got these diagonal lines, that's raglan shaping. So this one, it looks like this front band is also integrated into the rest of the garment, so you're not knitting that separately. You've got garter stitch worked for the button band or the front band. There are no buttons on here, so even that can be sort of intimidating, is making buttonholes and placing them properly so they'll be where you want them on your sweater. And the rest of the sweater is worked in stockinette stitch. Looks like a bit of garter on the cuff as well, and down along the bottom perhaps. Really nice detail here. Or so maybe that looks like it could be picked up after all. Maybe the button band is worked after you work the body. I haven't actually looked at the pattern, so I don't know. But because of that line right there, I'm guessing that it might be picked up after the fact and worked. Yeah, it's running in a different direction here. So I would say that yes, the button band is not worked at the same time. You're probably starting here and casting on and working the whole body this way, and then coming back and picking up that button band. But I haven't actually looked at the pattern, so I might be totally wrong about that. And it's, oh, it looks like reverse stockinette down here on the cuffs and the bottom. So I think this is perfectly fine for a beginner without having actually looked at the pattern myself, knowing that Tin Can Knits produces really wonderfully well-written patterns, and the goal of this collection is to be beginner friendly. They're not going to have anything in here that would be very difficult for beginners. So definitely something to check out. Now the next cardigan is the Livresque Cardigan from Espace Tricot. Now the comment wasn't quite sure, so I just went and took a look at the different patterns, and this was the latest cardigan pattern I saw, and it is a pretty simple one. So we're going to go with this one as a beginner friendly pattern. Now this one is also knit from the top down. Top down is it can be a nice starting place for new knitters because you can try it on as you go to make sure it's going to fit you and make adjustments as you're knitting it. If you knit it from the bottom up or in pieces, you're not going to know until it's sewn up and you can try it on. So this is one positive aspect of knitting top down. Now this one is not a raglan. This is actually a circular yoke construction. We've got increases that are sprinkled all throughout this yoke section. So instead of getting those raglan lines right here, we're not seeing a lot of increases. They're sort of hidden right in the stockinette stitch. So you're casting on up here, probably right with that neckband, and working your 1x1 rib, and then working the body of the cardigan, which is just simply stockinette. It's got some little stripes in here though for some fun. And it looks like, yeah, finishing the rib down here on the hem and the cuffs. And then the front band, you'd be picking up stitches to work the front band and your buttonholes, so there doesn't look to be anything particularly difficult about this pattern. So it comes in a wide range of sizes, 10 sizes from a 37 to a 73 inch bust. uses worsted weight yarn. Now it's not a free pattern. I did some digging. It's part of, they have a 10 pattern collection that is for circular yoke sweaters for $6.50. So that's a really good price for 10 patterns. So if this is something that interests you, a basic circular yoke pattern like this is a good beginner pattern. Our next recommendation was for the Effortless Cardigan from Lion Brand Yarns. Now this is also a top-down sweater, and it has those raglan lines you can see right there. So another top-down raglan stockinette body. Basic, looks like 2x2 rib on the hem and the cuffs and the patch pockets. So that's another skill to practice. Patch pockets are not hard to do either. You knit them after the fact and you sew them on, or you can knit them on. There's a couple different ways to do it. I'm not sure which one is done in this pattern, but definitely something a beginner can do. And this one comes in 5 sizes, from a 34 inch to a 50 inch bust, uses worsted weight yarn, and it's also a free pattern. So another good, very basic, beginner friendly top-down raglan that a beginner could definitely tackle. The next recommendation is the Home Cardigan by Cardi. So this one uses a bulky weight yarn. Actually, it uses 2 yarns held together, which equals a bulky weight, and you get that fuzzy. You can see there's a bit of fuzziness here. That's from carrying, I think it's either a mohair or some sort of fuzzy yarn with that. So this one comes in 9 sizes, from an extra small to a 5X. And you can see it's done in stockinette stitch. We've got a bit of 1x1 ribbing in this cuff and the hem down here, and in our button band. So this button band would be picked up and worked after the fact. Now the shaping here is different. We have a drop shoulder. We don't have a raglan or a circular yoke. It's a drop shoulder. You can see that line right here where the sleeve meets the body. It's hanging down off the shoulder. It's a drop shoulder shaping. So this one is done top down as well. So you are casting on up here, probably along the back neck, and then working some of the back, and then working each of the fronts, and then you'd probably join to work them. You're still working flat since it's a cardigan, but you're working all of it together, and then I'm guessing picking up to do the sleeves. Now I haven't actually seen this pattern, so I can't tell you exactly if that's how it's worked. Now it's not a free pattern. This one is $6.50 US, and I'm not sure. I would probably put this in the adventurous category, because I think that a top-down drop shoulder can be a little bit more confusing than a raglan. I mean, they can both be confusing in different ways, but I feel like this one's slightly more confusing. So maybe as an adventurous beginner, this would be appropriate, but certainly not something that's not beginner friendly. It's a very basic cardigan pattern and something that a beginner could definitely do. Now the next recommendation is the Aurora shawl collar cardigan from Valley Yarns. This one is designed by Kirsten Hipsky for Webs for their Valley Yarns, their in-house brand for their yarn. Now this one, it is worked from the bottom up. We're starting down at the bottom with some basic, you can see that's just garter stitch along the cuff and the hem, and then we're working in stockinette, and that button band is integrated, or is it? No, it's not integrated. That's worked sideways. So you're working the body first up to the armholes, and then you finish each front piece and the back, and you join them at the shoulders, and then stitches for the sleeves are picked up and knit down to the cuff, and then you have that button band that's worked in garter stitch. So the stitches are picked up and you're working that button band, and you're going to be working some short rows in here to get this shaping, I would imagine. And there's no buttons on the front, just this one loop and button closure. So the stitches are all perfectly easy for a beginner to handle, but because we have that shawl collar, it is probably more of that adventurous category, but it's also done in bulky yarn. So this is going to be a pretty quick knit. So it's not a free pattern, but definitely a cute one. It comes in 5 sizes, from a 36 to a 52 inch bust. Our next recommendation is from Morning Coffee by Amy Herzog. So this is not a free pattern. This is $8, but her patterns are always very well written, and they come in a wide range of sizes. Her patterns, this one in particular, comes in 12 sizes, from a 30 inch to a 54 inch bust. So this cardigan uses worsted weight yarn. I would categorize it as an adventurous beginner pattern because it uses a set in sleeve construction and it's worked in pieces. So you're working the front and the back, both fronts and the back separately, and the sleeves, they're worked in stockinette. There's a bit of moss stitch on that front band and on the hem. And this little detail in the back is also done in moss stitch. It's a very sweet detail. So you work all of the pieces separately and then you sew them together. Now, I'm not sure. Okay, it looks like the button band is done at the same time. So you're not doing that separately. Yes, it's integrated, and oh, the big difference, the big thing here is that it's continued after you finish the shoulders on the front. You're still working, you bind off the shoulders, but you continue working that button band, and then it's sewn down to the back. So that too, like, is a sort of a step up from something that a beginner might feel comfortable with. But if that's something you think you'd want to tackle, then you can certainly do that. But I would put it in that adventurous beginner category because it's a set and sleeve construction and you have to sew all the pieces up. But I would definitely recommend Amy Herzog's patterns. They're always very well written, clear instructions, great sizing. The next recommendation is for Comodo by Nicola Susen. And this one is intriguing. I've actually put it in my queue because I'm very intrigued by this pattern. The line here says it's your yarn, your gauge, your size, no swatch needed. So I'm very intrigued by that. You can see it's not a free pattern. It's €6. And the size range, it's listed as all sizes, any gauge. She does suggest that you use a light yarn like a fingering or a heavy lace weight. So that is intriguing to me that there aren't any sizes and there aren't any gauges listed. So this one is worked top down and it does have raglan shaping. You can see it looks like it starts right here at this little point. I'm guessing, I don't know, I haven't seen this pattern, but I'm very intrigued by it, so I think I might purchase this and try it. And you can see there's the shaping right there for those sleeves, and I'm guessing the front band. You've got this interesting detail down the back of the eyelets. So it's just plain stockinette. Sort of this fun swing shape, which I really like. I like a nice A-line shape. So that is intriguing to me as well. So I like this idea. I'm not sure how well it works. I mean, it works. Obviously, she's got a sweater here. So all sizes, all gauges, that's intriguing. So if that's something that you are intrigued by, then you could definitely check this out. It does not look like a difficult construction. It's just a basic top-down sweater. It doesn't look like there's a button band or anything here. Maybe, I think there's like a bit of garter stitch right along the edge that you're working as you're working. You're working in stockinette. This looks just like a rolled edge. So maybe it's just the rolled stockinette edge. So sort of that unfinished look. So definitely something to look at. I'm not going to rule this one out as not a beginner pattern because there's nothing about it that looks like it would be difficult at all. Unless there's some sort of like short rows to get this long shape here. That's the only thing I don't know, but it doesn't say anything about short rows here. So, and usually it would. So anyway, something to consider. It's definitely in my queue because I like the shape of it. I think it's really cute. And I'm intrigued by this idea of basically get the fabric you like and knit it for your size. So we'll leave it here. Thank you for that recommendation. The next recommendation is for the Douglas Cardi by Andrea Mowry. And this one I would categorize in the adventurous category. So this is not a free pattern. It does come in a wide range of sizes. We have 9 sizes from a 46 to a 72-inch bust. It's meant to be worn oversized. So this is another drop shoulder pattern. Now this one is knit bottom up, and I'm guessing it's probably knit in one piece. So it's just stockinette here with some fun colors, a basic rib on the bottom for the hem and the cuffs. So nothing difficult there. If it's knit from the bottom up, that's how I actually prefer to do a drop shoulder. I've knit them both ways, but I think for beginners, bottom up is probably easier. So you're probably knitting the whole thing in one piece, and then you get to the armhole and you stop and you do the both front separately and the back, and then you're probably doing like a 3-needle bind off or joining the shoulders right here, and then picking up stitches for the sleeves. That would be my guess for this one. And then it's got some afterthought pockets that are probably knit right on afterwards. Uses a DK weight yarn. Now I'd put this in the adventurous category because of this button band, which is sewn, I think it's a sewn on or picked up. I'm not sure which. You're either picking up stitches and working this, or you're making it separately and then sewing it on. In either case, it's sort of a little bit of a step up depending on your skill level. So definitely not something that's not beginner friendly, but something, you know, that might cause you to pause. So you could still definitely tackle this if you're a beginner, but the front button band is where you'd want to take a deep breath and see what's going on, basically. Now, this last recommendation is actually the first cardigan I ever knit, the Cedar Ledge cardigan, and then this is another Amy Herzog pattern. So this one comes in 12 sizes, uses sport weight yarn. It's not a free pattern, it's $8, but it's a very simple construction. It was knit in pieces. You're knitting all of these pieces separately, both sleeves and the front and the back, and then sewing everything together. But it is a drop shoulder, so it's very simple shaping. And there's this wide rib for the front band and for the hem, and there is a bit of texture just along the hem and the cuffs right there. So nothing like super hard to do. It's all basic stockinette. There's like a little chart and written instructions for doing this little bit of texture here. But I enjoyed knitting it. The front band is picked up and knit afterwards, but everything was very simple and it wasn't hard to do. This was my first cardigan and I enjoyed this pattern. It was a great pattern. So I highly recommend it as a beginner cardigan. Now those are 12 patterns to get you started for knitting your first cardigan, but I'm sure there are a lot more patterns out there that we could have discussed. If you have a favorite beginner-friendly cardigan pattern, please be sure to share it with us down in the comments. And if you're looking for more ideas, go check out those comments to see what other knitters are working on. Now, if you're looking for more great beginner-friendly projects, then check out this video right there, and I'll see you in the next video.